Welcome to the USA Ultimate Pro Championships here in Everett, Washington. We're at Archbishop Murphy High School, and this Chicago Machine San Francisco Revolver is the final game of the 2017 regular season on the Triple Crown Tour. Here's a look at the quarterfinal brackets. Machine knocking off top-seeded Sockeye. That was the biggest surprise. Then in a thriller, Machine over Johnny Bravo. To get to the final, Revolver only was broken one time in bracket play yesterday. And we welcome you in. Hi, everybody. Evan Lepler with Megan Tormey. And Machine has to be the story of the tournament. No one really knew what to expect from the Chicago guys, and yet they knock off Revolver to start day one. They knock off Sockeye to start day two.
I think even Chicago didn't know what to expect from Chicago going into this tournament. They added a lot of new players this year, but they coalesced really well at important moments, and that's why we see them right now.
And they have a really tough test today. It's hard enough to beat Revolver once in a weekend, let alone twice. Chicago's going to be shorthanded, but they still have a lot of talent. Kevin Kelly, Walden Nelson have been two of the key pieces this weekend. And Pavel Yana, starting his second year on Machine, he has really been the orchestrator for the offense, doing a little bit of everything as the quarterback.
Absolutely. He has a cannon of an arm, and he uses it with force very frequently for Chicago. He put up a 20 assists this weekend. That's absolutely astounding. So Chicago looking to him to get it into the end zone with frequency.
He really hurt Revolver on Saturday morning when Machine got the win over the four-time national champion San Francisco. The saying goes they win it every odd year. It is an odd year. They're perhaps on their way to a national title. Today could be a stepping stone in that process.
Right. I think they learned a lot from their loss to Machine earlier in pool play and are looking to avenge themselves today. They've made some strategic adjustments, and we'll see how they play out today.
I think the analogy Pavlianis is to Machine as Ashlyn Joy is to Revolver.
Absolutely. He's another individual who just helps run this beautiful Revolver offense. He himself has a cannon of an arm and uses it with precision that his team relies on.
Ashlyn Joy starting to find his really top-notch form from a couple years ago. Remember, he was a practice player last season. They certainly missed him, but he is back. Revolver has Grant Lindsley back on the field today as well. Machine's going to have its hands full, but Machine knows they can beat anybody. They've proven that throughout the Pro Championships. It's Machine and Revolver. Plastic Flies next. The USA Ultimate Pro Championships are presented by Discraft Ultrastar. Find the official disc of USA Ultimate at more than 1,900 U.S. retail locations. Under sunny skies, Chicago will begin the game on offense with the rookie Shanahan joining Geppert. Dangerous Pardo downfield. Travis Carpenter made some spectacular catches with Howe, Fergus, and the quarterback Giannis in the handler core for Andy Nielsen. Chicago, the 5 seed against San Francisco, who's only lost this year twice to Sockeye and once to Machine. That's a look at the likely Revolver O-line with Higgins, Lindsley, Lim, Joy, Marcy, Kittredge, and Doy. But Revolver will begin on D. And an interesting change in the 82-degree weather here in Washington. Nick Stewart, who has been an O-line player for much of his career, O-line at the U.S. Open for Revolver. He's going to launch the pull. He has switched to D, whether it's for this weekend or for the season, we will find out. But Stewart, member of the USA World Games team in Poland, launches the opening pull to get us started. Christian Johnson, Kevin Cox, Nathan White, with Eli Friedman, Sawyer Thompson, and Sam Cantor, the D-line for Revolver. And here comes Yitting Howe, who has played incredibly well throughout the tournament for Chicago. Giannis starting downfield, and Cullen Geppert marked by Stewart with the disc. This Machine team had obviously an up-and-down tournament. They went 1-2 on Saturday. They took down Revolver in their opening game, got up to a big lead and hung on, and got beaten pretty good by Bravo. The deep shot goes up. Pardo trying to read it. White has the size advantage, and Nathan White has the D.
White with the D for Revolver.
Going into this game, Revolver knew that Chicago was probably going to want to take those long shots because they did earlier in pool play and because they have a few less players today, so they might be looking to conserve energy.
A quick break, though, for Revolver. Christian Johnson hauls in the huck from White. And a quick 1-0 lead for San Francisco.
White to the end zone for Christian Johnson, and the Revolver score at San Francisco 1, Chicago 0.
There's the White turnover that leads to the very quick Revolver offensive possession. White then unleashes to Christian Johnson, who has position but not steps over his defender. It's a nice read.
Johnson, the former University of North Carolina dark side deep cutter, gets the scoring started for Revolver as Nathan White with the D and the dime. After Chicago lost that pool play game to Bravo, Megan, they basically went into their game against Oakland Gorilla knowing that if they won the game, they would still win the pool. And of course, they did not win the game. Gorilla played really well, watched most of that second half. Oakland, another strong Bay Area team in its second season, got the win. That gave Revolver the pool, even though they didn't feel like they played great throughout the day. It certainly felt like they played a great second half against Bravo. And then yesterday, San Francisco, in their 2 games, the O-line was only broken once.
Machine's had a lot of turnover between last year and this year, but the turnover has happened more on the offensive side than the defensive side. So defensively, these guys know what to do. But offensively, when things gel, they work really well, but they don't have the chemistry yet to have the consistency in performance.
Finn Fergus had the drop. And here's Byron Liu breaking the mark. Greg Cohen is in, and Revolver hasn't scored quite yet because of a pick.
This will go back to Byron Liu.
With your voice, babe. Inside.
Quickly to Bayless. Liu take a couple defenders with him. Now comes back, swings it. Zach Travis to Liu, and he had it poked out of his hands, or did he just drop it? Apparently no call, and Liu takes responsibility. No, he just lost it, never really had it. Back to live action, hucking deep. Carpenter gets there just shy of the goal line with Davis trailing defensively. Carpenter gets it to Howe, and Machine has a hold.
Looked dicey for a minute on Machine side as players swarmed Howe, who had the disc. Excuse me, swarmed Carpenter, who had the disc just outside the end zone.
Giannis, he's going to have to do this a lot, you'd think, to stay blow for blow with Revolver today.
Well, the good thing is Pavel Giannis can do that frequently, yes. So I think he's more than happy to continue to play that role for Machine.
When you watch Giannis as a thrower, what stands out most to you? Is it the power, the precision, or the balance, or what?
Without a doubt, it's the precision. I mean, he is such a powerful thrower, but he always manages to put those dimes right where he wants them. So frequently, the receivers don't have to do anything completely crazy to reel in the score. They're often well placed in front of the defender, easy for the recipient to read and run up on. He really doesn't have to take his eyes off downfield as he's gearing up to make that throw. For example, he doesn't have to turn his face away when he's throwing the backhand. Same thing with the forehand. So he's always able to keep the perspective of the field in his line of vision as he's putting up those throws.
Nelson and Phelps bolting down the field to guard the Revolver handlers. Here's Ashlyn Joy. Grant Lindsley with his first touch at this tournament. He's away from the team the past couple of days, but flew into Seattle late last night. Not a bad guy to add to your roster for a title game. And here's Bo Kittredge, guarded by the young Jesse White. Deep ball, Lindsley wide open. That's too easy. Revolver's offense continues its precision.
San Francisco 2, Chicago 1.
Cutters working well off each other. Sanchez coming in, Lindsley going long. And Marcelo might be the most underrated player either on Revolver or in the country.
I will agree with that statement, certainly on this Revolver squad. He's such a reliable player, always consistent in his performance. And there's a lot that he can do. As we saw that put to Lindsley, it was well executed. The timing was perfect. You know, he ran up onto the disc, looked, recognized the throw, and put it instantly. You know, I think a lot of people recognize him for his capabilities in the end zone, but there's a lot he can do for Revolver anywhere on the field.
Revolver lost the opening game of the tournament. They've won 4 straight since. Wins over Gorilla, Johnny Bravo, Sub-Zero, and Furious George. Only time the O-line was broken was late in the game against Furious George when they had already built a pretty healthy lead. Pretty good weekend, though, for Vancouver Furious George. Couple wins in pool play. Win in the quarterfinals to make it to semis. Building block weekend for the legacy team from Vancouver. Giannis breaks the mark for Carpenter. There's Pardo downfield. Long, lanky, with great speed. Uncle Pardo out of the University of Chicago, and now he's going deep, and he can't make the play because Nick Stewart got to the disc first, and that was talent on both sides, but one guy with a little more experience.
I think experience won out in that play. Stewart set himself up well. Pardo really did have a play on the disc. I think if he had gone up just a little bit earlier, he might have been able to reel it in over Stewart.
Kevin Cox takes the under. There's White, swinging it for Canner. Near the sideline, Eli Friedman, and he'll rip one long. Johnson going deep for the second time, and he drops it on this chance. So little jitters from Revolver early on, too. We saw the drop from Lou, and now Johnson drops another chance for a score.
Yeah, I have to think that they are a little bit flustered going up against a team they lost to in pool play. Even though Coach Mike Payne came up with some very reasonable, accomplishable adjustments for them going into this game, it's still tough.
Geppert giving Pardo another chance, and on really the third effort, second on this play, he'll make the catch for the score. The wry grin on his face. Pardo, somehow this thing is 2-all.
Great put from Geppert.
Calling Geppert to the end zone. Michael Pardo brings it in for the machine.
And I was talking to Alex Evangelides about Mike Pardo yesterday after their win against Johnny Bravo. And he said that last year, Pardo was on defense and was not nearly as productive of a teammate. They switched him over to offense and have just been astounded with his ability to continuously get open in the end zone.
One of the leading scorers in the tournament. Good company with Mickle and Cousins. It's a very exciting universe point between Machine and Bravo in the semifinals. Machine received, they were up 14-12, mind you. A Kevin Kelly layout goal got it to 14-12. Then Bravo got back in it, got the break to tie it at 14-all. Machine received, huck deep, I believe intended for Pardo, but Mickle was defending. So you question the logic of hucking on Mickle on Universe. Jimmy got the D. And you kind of thought, okay, here comes Bravo with their Universe line to march down the field, but no. Just every time this weekend when you thought Machine had lost their magic dust, they found a little bit more and induced a turnover and a high stall count under, and then puck deep, I believe, to Carpenter for the win. This is earlier, later in the day. Earlier they had been up 9-6 on Sockeye, and then Seattle had run off 4 in a row to take a 10-9 lead, and you're kind of thinking, okay, well, Sockeye's going to run the table. Dylan Freechild made a few breathtaking plays, and then all of a sudden, Machine ran off 5 in a row and closed the door on a potential Seattle sweep here at the Pro Championships in 2017.
Kevin Kelly says that when Machine's offense is firing on all cylinders, there's very little that opposing teams can do. Defensively, like I said, they have a lot of chemistry with one another. They're a very intelligent team. They're good at doing their research prior to tournaments, so they have a list of things that they want to do to try and beat their opponent with their defense. And one thing that they're doing right now that we're seeing is playing a lot of poachy D against Revolver. Alex Evangelides said it's a fool's errand to try and beat Revolver with one-on-one defense. So their adjustment is working well right now, making Revolver take a lot of shots to try and get it into the end zone.
Lucas Dahlman, who's played D for the last several years for San Francisco, has moved on to the O-line. Mike Payne thinks he gives them some stability as an offensive player. Here's Lindsley. He'll break his mark, and Stubbs unable to toe the line. Still needs at least one more toss. There it is. Simon Higgins with a grin on his face, as usual. And San Francisco's O-line is 2 for 2 in terms of converting O-points turnover free.
Stubbs to the end zone for Simon Higgins. And the Revolver score. That's San Francisco 3, Chicago 2.
Here we see defense break down just a little bit, as no one is watching Simon Higgins at the front of the end zone.
I remember chatting with George back in April, talking about, you know, the journey returning from his year off when he and his then girlfriend, fiance, now wife Emma hiked from basically Arizona to Canada on the Pacific Coast Trail, and he talked about how it was a challenge to regain the speed and the closing ability that he used to have. I gotta say, from watching him the past, it's back, because there were several examples this week, and especially after the Revolver O-line would turn it over, which doesn't happen often, but he's become such a force defensively after a turn where that speed has really started to come back to the surface.
Muscle memory is a real thing, and for a player like George Stubbs, it's not going to take too long to get back to where you were.
Oh, there's Eli Kearns taking away the first throw, and he's got the quick bookends for Revolver. A little too casual for Chicago. And Eli Kearns taking total control of that quick point.
When Eli Kearns decides to turn on the Jets and get a D, he is usually successful.
Didn't even need to bid.
Eli is such a great heads-up defender. You know, I'm sure he was running down as fast as he could, because that's what you're supposed to do when the pole goes up. But I think he recognized that an opportunity to get a D right outside of the end zone was developing, turned up the Jets even more. I mean, really, he got the edge of that disc with his fingertips.
Well, a year ago, you know, George was playing defense and Eli was playing offense, and they were kind of the kings for those respective lines. Remember, Revolver didn't have Ashton Joy or Robbie Cahill. And Eli Kearns perhaps a little miscast in that role. This is where he belongs. Out of bounds pull from Revolver. Chicago will take it from the brick mark. Critical point in the game right here. It's hard to imagine the Revolver O-line getting broken that many times. Maybe you'll get them once, if you're really lucky, twice. Geppert beats Rasmussen under. Cassidy's still been playing primarily defense for Revolver this weekend. Jack Shanahan played Youth Ultimate YCC for Andy Nielsen when he was a little bit younger. Now Shanahan 21, graduating to the elite club scene. Travis Carpenter has been an elite player since his early days playing for D3 Indiana Wesleyan. Giannis hassled by Kearns. Sneaks it up the line for Fergus. Oh, Carpenter over the shoulder of Davis, then quickly lefties it to the end zone for Giannis. Again, it's difficult right now for Chicago, but they're making some plays to hang tight.
It's not always pretty, it's not always orthodox, but that'll work.
At San Francisco 4, Chicago 3.
Doubt this is how Nielsen drew it up. But whatever works, especially in a final against a team with a pedigree like Revolver. Carpenter from Indianapolis, and of course Pavel Giannis. He played his college ultimate in Colorado. Mama Bird. I like that hat he wears. Secondary player with potential. You think that's a motivational tool for him?
I don't know, maybe throw off scouting reports.
How would you feel if you got an award and they gave you a hat with stitched into the back, secondary player with potential? I'd be flattered, but you're a different mindset than me.
Yeah, I think I'd rather not win that award at all.
Kelly on the pulpit machine.
It's Marcy, Joy, Justin Lim, who's playing his first tournament of the season with Revolver this weekend. Downfield, Higgins, Lindsley, Kittredge, and Marcy, and intended for Lindsley. It's taken away by Alan Gila. Vaughn got his hand in the cookie jar, comes up with a D. Big opportunity here for Chicago. First turnover for the Revolver O-line. Walden Nelson over to Neil Phelps. Quickly into the end zone, and he was in bounds. Give it to him. Joshua Steven Stein has the Chicago break.
Now that was a string of pretty ultimate from Chicago, using the entire width of the field. With only inches to spare to get that break.
Yeah, clearly in bounds. High stall count throw. He needed to put some sizzle to it. And how about this effort from Chicago? They're missing one of their top players, Captain A.J. Nelson. A couple other guys who were playing throughout the weekend, unable to remain here on the West Coast for the Monday final in the late afternoon. So no Alex Evangelides, no Andrew Sheehan, no Michael Schwenk. And yet we've seen Machine overcome the odds before. How about the U.S. Open last year? No one picked them to win it all, and they knocked off Revolver and Sockeye on back-to-back days in Rhode Island.
I think it's fair to say people rarely pick Chicago teams to win it all, but there's some real talent there. And again, it's worth mentioning that the offense has potential to be incredibly dynamic. It's just a matter of making sure that the team is always on the same page, which is a challenge when you have a number of rookies on the team.
How about this pull, forcing Revolver to start deep in its own end zone. Machine's defense in Callahan country, but out of the end zone to Kittredge, and now Lindsley. Higgins, he's got Stubbs taken off. He'll go for Marcy in the under, and back behind the disc, there was a pick. You see the cluster of bodies to the backside of Marcy. There goes Stubbs. Marcy gives him a chance. Not really, though. Too much on Marcy's huck, and Machine could get this right back on serve here.
Surprising overthrow from Marcy, who typically I regard as one of the most reliable players on Revolver. Just has very intelligent puts. Perhaps thought Stubbs was a little faster.
An unfortunate error for Revolver. Jeff Weiss, another Machine rookie, just 20 years old, University of Chicago. This one hanging in the air for Steven Stein, going up against Kittredge and Higgins, and that's a big advantage for Revolver.
Those are two defenders I would never want on my back as I was going up to catch a disc.
Joshua Steven Stein, welcome to Elite Club. You're 23 out of the University of Chicago, and you get to go deep with Bo Kittredge and Simon Higgins trailing you and sandwiching you. Good luck. Ashton Joy marked by Phelps. Pretty good downfield defense from Jeff Weiss, but Lindsley still able to shake free enough. Somehow finding a lane to get the reset for Joy. One-handed grab, Higgins, and there's Lindsley. Goal number 2 for Grant.
Higgins to the end zone for Grant Lindsley in the Revolver score. That's San Francisco 5, Chicago 4.
He still got the frosted tips after he had the idea for most of the USA World Games team to bleach their hair at one of their final practice weekends. It was right around Potlatch, early July. Ashlyn Joy did a little bleach. Bo Kittredge. Grant and Dylan Freechild are the ones who have it still lingering the most. It was just something that they could try to be goofy together, because as Grant said, when they had to cut their roster from 20 to 14, it was a deeply emotional process, really for all 20, because they had practiced together and tried to build a team of 20 strong, and then they have to go and cut 3 men and 3 women from that squad. The dyeing of the hair was something that Grant had in mind to try to bring people together, and he said it really worked. It made everybody loose and relaxed. How could it not?
I get my hair dyed, and that never makes me loose and relaxed, but I suppose it's for a different reason.
5-4, Revolver, up by a break. Once again, just throwing into the traffic leads to the turnover. Oh, there's a bid from Stewart, scoring the goal for San Francisco on a disc that looked destined for the turf.
Sam Canner instantly put his hands into his head after that. And here we see Machine throwing into traffic as they've done once before, hitting the disc just outside the end zone. Sam Canner surely thinking that that disc would sail a little higher, a little longer.
The body language of a bowler who felt like he rolled it into an alley. And somehow it hung up there enough for Stewart to play the role of Superman.
Sam owes him.
Stewart's had a solid 2017, coaching Carleton to a title and then going to play in Poland with Team USA, winning gold. Now joining Revolver. To be honest, joining Revolver has probably been the bumpiest part of his season in terms of trying to figure out what his role would be. I think that's still kind of a work in process, but he's a good tool to try to figure out how he best fits in.
That's funny that that is the bumpiest part of his year so far, but we're still a month and a half out from nationals. There's still plenty of time to come together, iron out those wrinkles.
Giannis again gives it back to Howe, and Giannis is taken off. Revolver switches. Kearns and Davis switch matchups. Here's Shanahan, and we'll get a stoppage.
We have an injury on the field.
Zach Travis, it appears,
Zach Travis shaken up. It looks like
shaken up, but he's going to stay in there. For orange-shirted observers to solve disputes, of which there really have not been any so far. Hopefully that continues. Fergus wants Giannis. Done! Giannis elevates and scores for Chicago. He's not just a handler, apparently.
Does it all. Captain Kevin Kelly was talking about how crucial it would be for Machine to take the shots that were given to them. Giannis is really good at recognizing when his defender is trying to take him out of the handler space, and then he'll go very quickly, often making himself the perfect target for someone else to just put one long. And as he showed you, with pressure, not perfect placement, he's willing to do what it takes to reel it in.
Obviously well coached in college, playing for Jim Shetler at Colorado. Tim Fergus, of course, a Truman State alum, now in his third year with Machine. He has found a role in the O-line the past couple of seasons. So all things considered, 6-5, Revolver's up a break. 2 breaks, as a matter of fact.
Kevin Kelly on the pull for Machine.
Revolver's broken 3 times. Machine has broken just once. And that pull lands just out the back. So Ashland Joy will collect it.
Ashland Joy to pick up for Revolver. He'll put it in play from the break mark.
Ashland Joy turned 29 this past April. Originally from Winters, California. Played at UC Davis and has become one of the top throwers in the world over the past half decade, without question. Sometimes dominates the point, sometimes let his teammates dominate the point. That was obviously a very Ashland-centric point, basically going every other down the field before he found Tom Doy. Yeah. I just wish he would take it easy. He's always so serious and never having fun, Tom Doy.
That's what everyone always says about him, as you can see on the field. Just doesn't seem like he's having any fun, but here we're watching Revolver absolutely punish Machine's slightly looser defense. Of course, that defense is aimed at taking away the obvious choices, but Ashland Joy churning so hard to just keep that disc moving, setting Machine back on their heels.
Machine has taken a timeout, trailing 7-5, trying to buy the O-line a little rest, perhaps. San Francisco entered the weekend number 2 behind Seattle Sockeye, who had the loss to Machine. It'll be interesting to see how these rankings filter out. Obviously, there was a huge tournament on the East Coast this weekend as well, where Raleigh Ring of Fire got the better of DC Truck Stop in the final on Universe Point. Boston Dig looking to get back to Nationals for the 2nd year in a row. Boston Ironside trying to get back to the semis for the 10th year in a row. And some of the squads on the outside looking into the top 16 right now, trying to spoil the party as we head toward the fall. Chicago Machine has certainly done enough this weekend. You beat number 1 and 2 in the country he gained some points. They should rise at least a couple spots in the rankings, you would think, to maintain that extra bid for the Great Lakes region. High Five and Machine, two strong teams. They'll keep a couple of bids. The Northeast, Boston Ironside, Boston Dig, New York Pony, and Toronto Goat heading into regionals with 4 bids. As Pony coach Brian Jones said, he was rooting for Toronto to have some big wins this weekend so they could have a stress-free regionals.
That's the one nice thing about bid allocation is it often does allow you to bid for your arch rivals to ensure that you have enough bids for the team in your region to go to nationals.
That was a couple years ago that Goat had a poor regular season, did not win a bid, and then beat Pony in the game to go. And there is certainly some bitterness and I think remains some testiness between those two ultimate cities. Toronto Goat had some nice wins this weekend in New York after getting a Canadian championship a couple weeks ago. Canadian Nationals. Machine looking to work it down the field. Shanahan, that was nearly foot blocked by Thompson. He may have nicked it. Howe and Cox collide.
Foul called.
How talented youngster out of Northwestern. Out of the Minnesota youth scene. Fergus rips one. Giannis again patrolling the deep space. Giannis with another goal for Chicago. That's his third goal of the half.
Fergus's second dime.
At San Francisco 7, Chicago
Again,
6.
Giannis recognizing that Canner was trying to push him under, push him deep, keep him out of the handler space. Just took that opportunity to go.
Looks like another timeout called here. Not sure if Revolver or Machine took it, but you've got 2 for the half. Machine with a short roster trying to get the rest they can. We mentioned how there was another big tournament in men's ultimate this weekend, the New York Invite, featuring so many of the top teams. And look at these quarterfinal matchups. 3 of the 4 were nail-biters. The Battle of Boston, Ironside narrowly edges Dig. Truck Stop barely beat Goat, but Goat had a couple nice wins on Saturday. And Patrol got the better of Pony, who had a pretty good Saturday as well. Truck Stop and Ring into the finals. And on Universe Point, Jonathan Nethercutt to Goose Helton for the win and the New York Invite title. In the past couple of years, during the Pro Flight finale, the folks in Madison started an event they lovingly called the Bro Flight finale. And with so many of the East Coast teams not coming out west for this Pro Championships this year, they organized this event, which was really kind of the East Coast edition of the Pro Championships. They don't get the ESPN coverage, but they do get the valuable reps heading into the fall.
Right, against high-quality teams. I mean, that kind of repetition in playing tight game after tight game is the kind of pressure you want to practice against so that at nationals, you're prepared to keep your chin up during those tough games. Perhaps you go down, perhaps you don't, but then have to perform in the next round at a very high level.
Revolver looking to take half with Tom Doy, Grant Lindsley, George Stubbs, Bo Kittredge, Justin Lim, Jordan Marcy, and Ashlyn Joy. Here's Kittredge. And a junky zone look leads to a turnover. Von Alangilan gets another, and Chicago ties this thing up 7-all. Both breaks keyed by the athleticism of the Filipino defender, Von Alangilan.
We're all tied up at 7. Halftime coming soon.
Chicago has come to rely on Von Alangilan's athleticism, awareness, and dogged determination.
Bo had no idea he was coming.
Most people don't.
Kevin Kelly in the end zone. Kelly, a captain of this team, was playing for the Philippines at Beach Worlds. Of course, Akira Yamaguchi, who's one of the leaders of Filipino Ultimate, has Chicago roots, so there's been a nice connection between Chicago and the top teams from the Philippines, the Boracay Dragons. They've got David Liboon, better known as Dada, coming over from Team Philippines, one of the top players from that country, joining Machine this year. Still kind of learning what his role is going to be, but he's certainly an asset, small, speedy, similar to Vaughn.
Yeah,
and the Filipino Ultimate reputation based upon beach greatness, but they're gradually figuring out their way. There's Dada coming into the view. In his late 20s, his first go of it in the USA Youth Club Series coming up. Andy Nielsen was saying how he's just so excited to be a part of it. It's an incredibly engaging energy for the entire team to be around. He'll get a chance to play D here. Revolver still is up 1 break. But where, Megan, it certainly felt at one point that like we could go to half 8-2. And to be having point to half here is a testament of Machine's
Kevin Kelly on the
cojones.
Yeah, I think when things work well for Machine, they work well in an astounding way. Teams have a very difficult time adjusting to the defensive pressure they put on. They have a very difficult time defending against players like Pavel Yanis, Travis Carpenter, Tim Fergus.
Machine began in another jump. They hammered over it, so they went to man, and now Dahlman picked up by Alangilan. Stubbs looking for Lindsley. And that was pretty. Lindsley had it the whole way, and Revolver takes out 8-7. Every time this weekend that Machine has been scored upon, the entire team goes down and does a quick push-up. They all just went down, but a pretty solid first half for Chicago. Revolver able to take half, Stubbs to Lindsley. If you're a Revolver, take your pick. You want Joy to Kittredge or Stubbs to Lindsley?
Yeah, a lot of high caliber connections on that team. Speaking of difficulty, it's really hard for Machine to take away all of the options that Revolver has downfield and stop the players who have so many throws in their arsenal.
Lindsley's goal gives Revolver a 1-goal lead. They're up a break, and they'll receive to start the second half. But now it's halftime, and we'll chat with Chicago Machine head coach Andy Nielsen. And, Coach, you guys fell behind by a couple breaks and fought your way back into it. What's it like watching Von Alangilan sneak around there for D's?
It's business as usual for him, I think. He's a great athlete, great player, and he's really tough to know where he is and how fast he explodes to the disc. So that's what he does, and that's what he's doing in this game.
I know you guys are down a few players. Must be a tiring half. How is everyone feeling about playing another half of really tight Ultimate?
We feel great. We're playing games to 1 all this weekend, so games to 1 everybody can handle. We're just pushing hard in that game to 1.
What was the key to closing out Revolver on Saturday morning?
Well, I think that we're seeing a different version of them, which is great. They gave us the disc on unforced errors, and we punished, and this game's a lot cleaner, and we're having to earn our blocks. So it's a kind of high-level game that you expect for the finals.
And you get wins over Revolver and Sockeye, and you lose games to Bravo and Gorilla. I know you have half to go, but what are your takeaways from this weekend heading into the fall?
So we're a young team, have young guys in really big roles, and we're still growing into ourselves, and we'll be growing into ourselves as our project for the whole year. So we're encouraged by the results that we're getting, but really focused on the process of growth.
All right, Andy, good luck in the second half. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Evan.
Andy Nielsen, the head coach of Chicago Machine. He's been involved in Chicago Machine Ultimate for over a decade as a player and a coach. And they've pulled some big surprises in the past, so who knows? It's Revolver, though. Up 8-7, up a break at the break. Revolver leads Machine 8-7 at the half. San Francisco got a quick break at the outset and had a multiple break lead before Machine got a couple of them back. A lot of hucks in the first half, Megan.
No, especially considering the fact that I think both teams were trying to take away those huck options, but when you have cannons on both sides, those hucks will fly.
Great deep cutters on both sides as well. This is Geppert sending Pardo, who couldn't get it on the first effort, but neither could Nate White, so on the second effort, that's Eli Kearns with the quick bookends, getting down on the pull. That fires up Revolver. That Kearns play made it 4-2. But then Pavlianis, the first of his 3 goals in the first half for Machine. How about Nick Stewart? That was for a break. He's been playing D. Giannis continues to get work done in the deep space. But Von Allen-Gielan, maybe the MVP of the first half with his pair of Ds leading to the Machine breaks of the first half.
Oh, without a doubt. It's very difficult to stop a high-powered offense like Revolver. Von doing it twice, essential to keeping Chicago in this game.
San Francisco Revolver leading by 1 at the break. Trying to win the Pro Flight finale for the 3rd year in a row.
There is a place where we are us at our best.
A place where everyone is welcome.
Regardless of age, shape, skin color, or anything else that tries to box people in.
A place where we defy the odds, defy the naysayers,
and even defy gravity.
A place where it's accepted that success
doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave, to the determined.
A place that knows grit, knows grace, knows bright lights, and knows empty bleachers.
A place where we remember to laugh.
Where we learn to trust.
Learn to high-five strangers.
And eventually, even learn to fly.
A place where character, community, and competition
are all as balanced as a disc in flight.
That place isn't in a stadium or on a field.
That place is in the spirit of our players.
Because we don't just play Ultimate, we live Ultimate.
Revolver up a break at the half. It's 8-7 over Chicago Machine. San Francisco coach Mike Payne kind enough to join us down on the field. An up and down first half. You guys made some exciting plays and also had some uncharacteristic drops. Your thoughts on the first 15 points?
I think the first 15 points were definitely inconsistent for us. I think we had the opportunity to really close the door early on these guys. We had the disc twice in the first 2 points on D. After we got that first break, and we didn't capitalize. So I think we're playing inconsistently. There are flashes of greatness. We've got Nick Stewart making, poach D skies and catching disc down low. We've got unsung heroes like Kevin Cox playing great D, but we need to improve our consistency.
So there have been quite a few hucks in a game where you were looking to take those away. You've still had the opportunity to D some of them. Are you going to change anything, change any of the defensive looks, or are you happy with the way things are shaking out?
I'm actually pretty happy with how things are shaking out. I think we can be a little bit flatter on the mark, force more loopy throws that we have more time to go and get position on. These guys are just playing some great ball going deep. I think that we're going to keep taking our shots, and hopefully our depth will help win out in the second half.
Mike, you've got a versatile group of players, and understandably, I think there's a lot of interest in regards to how you're going to put these pieces together. You've made some changes throughout the weekend. Do you think you'll make a lot more changes heading towards Sarasota in the fall?
I don't think we'll make a lot more changes. We've made a couple changes this weekend. To be honest, we haven't played together that much this year as a full team. We've had folks off playing in AUDL. We've had folks playing at the World Games, at the World Beach Championships. And so this is one of the first tournaments where we basically have everybody present. I think one of the biggest changes that we made this weekend that's been positive is my son Rylan is here as a water boy for the team, and that's been fun for everybody, including him. We've also put Lucas Tallman over to the offense and Nick Stewart to the defense. So those are some of the changes we made, but I don't think we need too many more changes going into the fall. We just need to gel a little bit more.
Rylan had a slow start against Machine, but he's really found his form, as have you guys. Best of luck in the second half, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Head coach of San Francisco Revolver, Mike Payne. Revolver looking for its 5th national title in 2017. They're 7 points away from another Pro Championships title. Thanks for spending some of your Labor Day Monday with us here from Seattle, Washington. The second half about to begin with Machine trailing Revolver by 1. Giannis very involved, obviously, in the Chicago offense. Couple assists apiece for Tim Fergus and Travis Carpenter. Grant Lindsley in his first game of the weekend, yet it's not surprising to see him reintegrate back in with no turbulence along the way. Couple assists for George Stubbs in the first half. Stubbs and Lindsley out there on offense with Lim, Marcy, Kittredge, Joy, and Higgins. The superb 7 on the O-line to begin the second half for Revolver. It's been interesting to watch Justin Lim play in his first tournament with San Francisco. Former Carlton product. He played with Sub-Zero and last couple of years with Seattle Sockeye. A guy who is certainly not physically imposing from a size standpoint, but scored so many goals for Seattle Sockeye last couple of years. Mike Payne saying he brings kind of that same thing. When he gets underestimated, he can do a lot of damage. Oh, there's Joy launching a big hammer. Higgins reads it well, and he's in the end zone. How about that? About 50 yards in the air, crossfield, Joy to Higgins, 9-7, Revolver.
It's one thing I really love about watching Ashlyn Joy play. Just when you think, wow, what is he possibly going to do? He's able to find an out, usually a big out. Simon Higgins, no one on him, is able to keep his eye on the disc, look for the end zone line, and make sure that he walks back the few steps necessary to ensure that that's a goal.
Not much breeze. That throw becomes a little easier with the lack of a wind. Reminded me a little bit of former Chicago handler Brett Matsuka launching dynamic 50-yard hammers down the field. Certainly Brett's in the conversation for craftiest handlers in the sport.
Captain Rasmussen on the pull for Revolver.
Rasmussen's pull received by Giannis to Howe. Out there with Fergus, Pardo, Carpenter, Geppert, and Shanahan. Through the hands of Fergus, intercepted by Pat Bayless. Turns to Rasmussen. Interesting cut by Davis. It was more of a clear than it was a real deep cut, but he ran with purpose, forcing Carpenter to really sell out to stay with him. Nice example of the Revolver system of discipline. Kearns takes a timeout.
Eli Kearns with the disc for Revolver. He'll take a timeout. That's their first timeout of the second half.
Again, this is the final game of the regular season, the Triple Crown Tour in 3 different legs, beginning with the U.S. Open, culminating in the regular season with the Pro Championships, heading toward the series. The SoCal Condors had some moments this weekend where they looked like a contender, perhaps struggling with the top-tier teams. Obviously, Sockeye got the win in Minnesota, and Michigan high five, winning the Elite Select Challenge in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago. They are a bit of a wild card heading into nationals. Can they break through and get to the semis? There's been optimism about that the past couple of years, and they've fallen short of the quarters on a couple different occasions. We'll see.
I think in general, it's always difficult to tell exactly what's going to happen with the Midwest teams. Talent ebbs and flows in the Midwest area. It's always hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on with those teams, and will they be able to perform at the big show?
One of the biggest stories heading into nationals is what's going to happen with the defending champs, Boston Ironside. They've had something of a subpar regular season by their lofty standards. With that said, they're still unquestionably in the top 8, it feels like. And they're trying to sustain the incredible streak of semifinal appearances, which would be 10 in a row if they did it this year. Obviously, they had made 9 in a row without winning until they won it all last year, beating Revolver on the dramatic Universe Point in Rockford. Error out of the timeout from Bayless, and then Giannis sending Pardo. A couple defenders nearby, and a couple defenders win out. Travis and Davis duel for the D.
Davis with the D for Revolver.
Pardo looking a lot more primed to catch that disc, perhaps learning his lesson early from previous drop from Nathan White.
And Revolver hucked it deep to Rasmussen. He caught it on the goal line, and then his reset was errant. So another turnover. That's a couple turns per side on this point at 9-7. 0 point for Chicago. Yiding Howe is there. So you heard Mike Payne admit we had some chances to twist the knife. We couldn't do it. Another opportunity missed right here.
In the machine score. That's San Francisco 9, Chicago 8.
Here's the turnover. Rasmussen kind of threw it and put his hands up like, what's everybody else doing?
Both sides are going to be able to rewatch this game and pinpoint exact areas where had they made a difference, it might have resulted in a larger lead or a larger deficit. A lot of definitive learning points in this game.
No question. Second goal for Howe. The Chicago team certainly shorthanded today. We've talked about them missing A.J. Nelson. Michael Schwenk has played very well throughout the weekend. Alex Evangelides, who obviously was a key player for Revolver during a couple of their big runs. Julian Childs Walker, another veteran Seattle native, played at Carleton. Been banged up throughout the weekend. Nelson's on Joy. Alden Nelson, one of the top handler defenders in the sport, played really well for the USA beach team in Royan, France. Teammates there with Cassidy Rasmussen.
No, he was here. He was here.
Steven Stein marking Lindsley. Really good defense downfield by Kevin Kelly, preventing the under to Sanchez. Dahlman looking for Doy. Tom Doy secures another score with Jeff Weiss right on his back.
And the Revolver score.
The pressure from Weiss was not enough
Chicago 8.
to make Tom Doy read that disc any differently.
So a turnover, free hold from the Revolver O-line as Dahlman, still not all that comfortable being on the O-line. I think he's comfortable playing. It's just a role that he hasn't played a ton of with Revolver.
It always takes a little bit of adjustment to switch roles on a team. I remember I started out as an offensive cutter for Nemesis, and then in 2010 or 11 was switched over to defensive handler. And I mean, I built my identity on being the initiating cutter for our offense. I thought, how could I possibly make the switch? But it ended up being the right decision for our team, but there certainly were some growing pains that I learned to adjust to the type of cuts that I needed to make. Coming out fiery on D as opposed to trying to be chilly on offense. There are lots of little different nuanced changes that you need to make to your playing style. Thankfully, Lucas Dahlman has the time and the support to make those.
And he's always been a worker bee type, you know, not coming from a big college program. He played at San Francisco State. Carpenter gets it to Giannis. Whenever Pavel gets the disc, you know, that first look is somebody streaking deep. Okay, no, okay, now what am I going to do with it? Geppert will look long for Fergus. Chased by Friedman. Oh, Eli Friedman deflects it out the back of the end zone.
This is why I think Coach Mike Payne is very pleased with the defense. Yes, perhaps the marks could be a little bit flatter, but Revolver is winning these jump balls right now.
Another new weapon for this Revolver franchise. Eli Friedman, former Callahan Award winner at Oregon. Kevin Cox, he'll rip one, looking for Stewart, but Nick's not gonna have a chance. That's trailing out of bounds. No foul called on the throw, so just a missed release by Cox. Another missed opportunity for Revolver. The break chances category certainly not anything they're particularly proud of in this game. Break percentage, I should say. They've had a ton of break chances. Throwing into traffic. Fergus. Howe. There's Carpenter. He must hit the ground 50 times over the course of a tournament weekend.
He was such an exciting add to Machine a few years ago. Such a dynamic player. And you and I have been watching him since he was 19, 20. Still so young and yet really developing as an explosive, dynamic player.
And he's gotten a lot of reps, you know, playing with the top teams in Indy from his late teenage years. Oh, there's Stewart roaming, hunting on defense.
Stewart with the knee for Revolver.
Incredible extension.
Over to pick up.
Can Revolver finally capitalize? Friedman sending Stewart. Bookends for Stewart.
Eli Friedman in the end zone for Nick Stewart, and the bookend score for Revolver.
Good ones on that.
San Francisco 11, Chicago 8.
Nice easy put from Friedman. You notice how much inside out he put on that disc. So it flew straight but stayed on Stewart's left side. As he was more towards the middle of the field, it allowed him to continue his forward momentum but keep the disc in his periphery. He had steps on Cullen Geppert, but really ensured that he had a very easy catch in the end zone.
Timeout called by Machine, sensing things getting away from them a little bit. They're now down another break at 11-8. Pro Flight, Pro Championships this year. 8 teams, including the top 2 in the country heading into the weekend, Sockeye and Revolver. Of course, Sockeye knocked off in the quarters. SoCal Condors, they were fun to watch, but they couldn't get past Johnny Bravo. Bravo played a perfect offensive game, didn't turn it over once on offense in the quarterfinals. Of course, couldn't sustain it against Machine. And maybe the story of the weekend in the men's division, Furious George getting several wins. They went 2-1 in their pool on Saturday. And they'll be a factor as they contend at Northwest Regionals, battling with Sockeye and Portland Rhino. Southwest Regionals going to have another bid this year. It's been Revolver's region for a long time, but basically SoCal Condors and Gorilla, the 2 teams most likely to be battling for that second bid out of the Southwest. Who you got?
I don't know. I really like the Condors for it.
There's a cool moment yesterday at the Fields where I got to meet Tom Kennedy, one of the original Condors and one of the godfathers of West Coast Ultimate. He was out in the lawn chair with one of his buddies of 50 years watching the SoCal Condors. How about that grab by Byron Liu? Didn't make the easy one earlier, but the tough one makes it 12-8. And Machine might be running out of gas.
You see a very uncharacteristic drop from Pavel Yanis. Friedman eyes down the field the entire time, puts a very tricky throw up for Liu, who makes an improbable grab.
Can you put a thought bubble over Byron Liu as he makes this catch?
Let's go.
No, I don't think I'm clever enough.
Why would you go with a blade there, Eli? It worked. If that doesn't work, that's something that Kearns probably gets talked to about, you would think.
Let's be honest, he's probably still going to get talked to about that.
That's fair. I was saying it was a really cool opportunity to meet the original Condor, Tom Kennedy, and talk to him a little bit about the Condors through the years and just the growth of Ultimate. And one of the legends in the sport. It's been really one of the great privileges of my opportunity broadcasting Ultimate over the past 5 years to meet people like Dan Roddick and Nog Rauk and Tim Rockwood and Suzanne Fields, Tom Kennedy, Jim Parinella. Some of the godfathers, godmothers of the sport of Ultimate. Their stories are pretty good from the 70s and the 80s. I don't know if they're true, but they're really good stories.
They're probably 70% true. Things change with time, right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably what the standard should be. Nelson coming under. Kelly. Phelps connecting downfield with Champ. Alex Champ, another Machine rookie, gives the disc back as a result of a pick. You know, this Machine team is taking from its local college scene, from University of Chicago, Northwestern, Illinois, and really gaining a lot of young players, building them up in their system. They're certainly building something. And the potential, obviously, illustrated by the fact that they can knock off the top 2 teams in the country any particular weekend. The question is, can they be consistent enough to do it for a whole weekend with the pressure of nationals?
Right, I mean, that is an excellent question, and I think it's one that will be answered in Sarasota, obviously for that tournament, but also for their future prospects. A lot of these players, as you said, are young, are committed to helping develop a good Chicago program. So they won't follow this year with a rebuilding year, but rather building off of this year towards something in the future.
Steven Stein deep for Machine. Makes it 12-9. What about this San Francisco team? You know, they lost twice to Sockeye at the U.S. Open. Once in pool play, once in the final when it was 9-9, and then Sockeye dominated the rest of the way. And what I think we all agree was an uncharacteristically poor performance from this team that prides itself on discipline and fundamentals, etc. Sockeye losing to Machine in the quarters. If San Francisco goes on to win here, do they deserve to be considered the favorite heading into the fall, or do you still give the nod to Sockeye despite their loss to Machine yesterday?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I think Revolver has had so much on their plate in recent history. They've had players at the World Game, they've had World Beach, they've had players playing in the professional circuit. So there's been a lot of ultimate outside of the Revolver program demanding their attention. I don't know, I do think that if they win this game, they ought to be considered the favorites going into nationals, just because they're starting to show what kind of program they're putting together to head into the series.
There's a lot of questions, I think, for really every team. But, you know, Seattle Sockeye, Lebo nearly getting the D. Sockeye didn't have Matt Rader this weekend, didn't have Danny Karlinski available this weekend. I think they expect to get both those guys back, but it's unclear. Jacob Janin, another guy who wasn't playing for Sockeye, but a key depth piece for them. Will Chen's status also uncertain after hurting himself at Masters Nats. Lindsley elevates. Wins the jump ball to make it 13-9.
Lindsley in the Revolver score at San Francisco.
Wonder how many box drills he did outside his cave in Thailand to work on these hops.
I wonder how many box drills Chicago will plan to run after this weekend.
Let's go, Sharks.
Another dime from Sanchez. Big effort from Brad Bolliger. Lindsley gets the better of him by a little bit. After most tournaments, you saw Malika Anderson, the strength and conditioning coach, trainer for Revolver. San Francisco does a workout after the tournament. When they lose, like at the U.S. Open, the workout is usually called loser ladders. And they go and run ladders to basically remind themselves that they lost and work hard for the next time. If they win, which they're 2 points away from doing, they go to the beach and run humility dunes. And they're a couple points away from, I don't know, maybe some Thursday humility dunes by the bay. Humility dunes, by the way, from what I've heard, are no joke.
Oh, I'm sure not. I've done workouts at the Indiana dunes before. Very few things that make you wish you were dead.
There's Geppert underneath, chased by Rasmussen. He'll rip one. Looking for Shanahan. Well done. Shanahan beats Travis on a nice shot from Geppert to make it 13-10.
Calling Geppert to the end zone for Jack Shanahan and the Machine score at San Francisco 13, Chicago 10.
This Chicago team, you know, will probably be seeded, assuming they qualify, somewhere in the middle of the pack. Not certainly not a top 2 seed in a pool, you would think. Maybe a 3 seed or a high 4 seed.
That's not true.
I'm not sure you want to see Machine in your pool at Nationals. I mean, the way they've proven they can take out anybody in any given game.
Yeah, when I was talking to Alex Evangelides yesterday, who has played for Revolver, played for Sub-Zero, he said that Machine is the most well-organized team he has played for, behind the leadership of Captain Kevin Kelly, who is one of the most organized individuals I know, and Captain Walden Nelson, who really is a very thoughtful individual, both macro and micro, and then Coach Andy Nielsen, who has been so committed to the Chicago program for as long as I can remember. Really 3 individuals who come at this with different talents, different perspectives. They are going to take the lessons learned in this tournament and turn them into weapons to add to their arsenal going into Sarasota.
Pretty high praise from Evangelides to say Machine's the most organized team I've been with, considering Revolver's up there too. Dahlman sending Stubbs. Last game of the weekend. He's still got the legs. George Stubbs makes it 14-10.
Lucas Dahlman to the end zone. George Stubbs goes horizontal and brings it in for the Revolver score. At San Francisco 14,
it's a Sports Center Top 10 nominee as Dahlman let George Stubbs make the play.
Talk about amazing closing speed. If there was any question about his speed going into this game, those questions are answered.
Yeah, change the topic. There are no questions about Stubbs' speed. Full speed coming into your living room. Body's already hurting from the landing. Why not just smack yourself in the head with a disc? Even out the pain. George still looking for his first men's club title.
On the pole for Revolver.
Bunch of world championships with the USA World Games team, and of course his younger brother John in the thrilling final last year got the gold by the slimmest of margins. You know, every team, you think Revolver, they've won it so many times, but every year there's different stories to be told. A guy like Nick Stewart looking for his first gold medal in the men's club division. Say the same for Stubbs and Eli Friedman and Tom Goy. Antoine Davis and Sawyer Thompson, they're a couple of younger rookies. Pardo took off, but White was basically with him, and now Pardo's coming back under, and he drops it. It's a game that Mike Pardo, you'd think, will learn from. Uber talented 23-year-old. He will, I think, by the time he's done, be in contention for a national title. But a couple of plays in this game certainly he'd like to have back, and now Stewart rising up for the clincher. For the 3rd year in a row, Revolver wins the final tournament of the regular season and will head into nationals with the momentum. San Francisco avenges their pool play loss on Saturday. But 53, 54 hours later, they get the better of Chicago Machine, 15-10 in the final.
This game is a great example of how individuals who have been in really high-pressure games more frequently tend to outperform those who don't have that kind of experience. I mean, Chicago had opportunities, just a few uncharacteristic mistakes from top players, a few careless drops from some of the younger players on the team really helped widen the gap between their eventual score and San Francisco's eventual victory.
San Francisco, for the 3rd year in a row, champs of the Pro Flight finale. The USA Ultimate Pro Championships are presented by Discraft Ultrastar. Find the official disc of USA Ultimate at more than 1,900 U.S. retail locations. 15-10 Revolver over Machine in the USA Ultimate Pro Championships final. Revolver the 2 seed coming in, but gets the victory. George Stubbs, congrats on the win. I know it just ended, but what are the main takeaways for Revolver from this particular weekend?
I think most of all, it's just that we've got to earn it. No matter what, there's nothing like no expectations, whether it's us or other people. It doesn't dictate our actions. We've got to earn it all the time.
You just delivered our Discraft play of the game when Lucas sent you deep. What was your initial thought when you see that throw go up?
You're not thinking at all. Just trying to go get it.
Was this 100% speed for you?
Probably pretty close. I don't know what's 100% if that isn't.
The effort that you guys had to put in to start to separate from Machine, was there ever any concern that perhaps we were going to have a repeat of the first game of pool play?
I mean, of course, like we can't ever take anything for granted. I think we were much more locked in on our strategy and our attitude that we need to take. I think that was part of our loss in the first game. I mean, they absolutely earned it. They beat the heck out of us. But this game, we came out hard with lots of legs and went our way.
You head into Sarasota. Obviously, Sockeye is a team that's gotten the better of you guys a couple times. You don't get to see them on this weekend. What are the main thoughts heading into the fall?
You know, we're just focused on the next practice weekend. We got to get better then. We got to get better the next weekend. We got to get better at regionals, and that's it.
Will you guys be heading to the dunes this week?
I'm sure we will. Humility Dunes.
George, congrats on the win. Thanks for joining us. The mustache looks great. And
I appreciate that.
We'll see you in Sarasota.
Thank you.
George Stubbs, USA World Games captain for the second time this past July in Poland. Revolver begins and ends its season with tournament victories. They lost in the finals at the U.S. Open. Body of work, Megan, is Revolver the favorite heading into the fall?
I still think that they are. I think they have all of the pieces of the puzzle, perhaps not as polished as we'd expect them to be, but the product is still high caliber.
8-team Pro Championships bracket, one last look. Revolver won it in 2015, won the national title. Won Pro Flight last year. Ironside didn't attend Pro Flight. Ironside beat him by 1. Revolver, though, trying to get the second and third legs of the Triple Crown Tour in 2017. That is what is at stake as we groove toward the fall. That'll do it for our weekend here in Washington. Seattle, and San Francisco. Familiar faces in Club Ultimate. Mixtape, Riot, and Revolver. For Megan Tormey, Evan Lepler saying so long from Archbishop Murphy High School. To watch all the games on replay, watch ESPN.com, download the Watch ESPN app. That'll do it for the Triple Crown Tour's regular season. We are on to Sarasota. We'll see you in the Sunshine State in October.